Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
We head to racing yet again here on this morning for most, but evening time here for all the Australian drivers for round 6 of the BISC GT3 Championship at Spa at Barcelona, Catalonia. And as you can see on your screens, ladies and gentlemen, there is some rain and mist all over our track here for tonight, and it doesn't look like it's going to be stopping whatsoever. So we've got quite an interesting race lined up. My name is Tristan Herbst, joined in the commentary box and production box by Sam Fitzpatrick. And we're looking to have quite a good race here today. We do have, unfortunately, quite a low amount of participants, just obviously due to the event cycle and just the general date. But we are looking at about 12 drivers on today's grid at Barcelona. You might know this track if you watch familiar sports such as Formula One or any other titles. But today we go racing with the GT3 class. Sam, what are your thoughts on today's race, especially qualifying as we just start off now?
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome to have Barcelona feature and awesome to have some rain racing. Like, this is the first wet race we've had this season. I wasn't quite sure whether we would see anything this season, but this has been, I think, sort of in the plans for the organisers for a little while. It is rain throughout. Like you said before, there's no sign of it stopping. That's what the administrators want, and it'll be a different challenge for the drivers. I'm glad that they're using it here at Barcelona because there is something about the circuit, and not to downplay how entertaining the racing is going to be today, because I sure hope it will be. But Barcelona is a weird one because in real life, and we've seen it in the sim as well, it just doesn't usually have that exciting races. I think with a little bit of rain though, I think it could mix up the order and make it a lot more unpredictable.
Definitely. So we often see it though with Barcelona is that it's a track that cars tend to struggle in during heated moments, and rubber does tend to burn quite hot here, especially with your long sloping right and left handers that do take quite a lot of wear on the tires. But like Sam Rainey mentioned, we have quite a lot of wet weather racing here today, which means that the track temp is going to be gradually lower, as well as a lot of wet spots for the drivers to utilize to get those tires nice and cool. But that also means they've got to watch out for grip loss, because they will have a lot less grip to play with. And if you can see now on your screen, looking at all the curbs around the map, they're practically a pool in their own. Basically all of them, as you can see, shining on the camera over there. And if you dare touch one of those curbs in a qualifying or a practice or even the main race, well, if you have any experience in GT3 racing, it's not going to end well whatsoever. Those curbs are quite a nightmare on wet weather racing. But before we head on further towards qualifying and before things start to get interesting, as we can see, a couple of drivers already getting in those lap times in, let's go through the sponsors that have made today's racing possible yet again. We've obviously got Bowden's own Premium Care Car Products as our main title sponsor, as well as Benji's YouTube channel, where all of you are watching live currently, watching the cars go around Barcelona. Then we've got RaceForge, all your racing stats and analysts, and the private league management needs. So that's currently what BISC is also running on, which is awesome. Hyperspec, the newest sim gloves on the market. Make sure you grab yourself a pair from Hyperspec, created by sim racers for sim racers. Then we've also got Jack Ashton Sim Coaching, which in its name is Sim Coaching. So if you ever need any form of practice, whether it's Catalonia in the rain or anything else on the iRacing calendar, make sure you head there. We've also got Hair Forum as well as RBMX Designs for all your sim racing livery custom designs. So you'll see tonight quite a lot of nice liveries out on the cars. If you're wanting something and you just don't have the knowledge to create a livery or masterpiece of your own, then check out RBMX Designs and they can create something absolutely magical for you. But we are already into round 6 over here, and we'll pull up the championship standings just quickly to have a look at what it's looking like going into this next round. It's obviously wet weather racing, which means it's gonna be interesting. So it should be coming up on your screen there, you'll see it. But Mr. Ben Snell in the big Mercedes, like we saw him going around track a little bit earlier, leading the charge with quite an aggressive lead. 149 points here with Peter Ferraro just a bit behind. Dante Oliva 1 point away with Guillaume Dombre, even just a slight bit further. So that second down to around about 5th, all within 1 race difference between each other. So we could be seeing a little bit of a change up here. What are you thinking about that though, Sam? Do you think we'll see a bit of a championship standing change here between the second slot?
Well, unfortunately, I've just realised that I accidentally put the points in the wrong little bit. So I will quickly change that. That was the points before the last one. Now these are the correct points. I'm so sorry, Tristan. But these are the actual points. So that's Ben Snell. Actually on 195. He's even further ahead. But the battles for second place is still raging on. Dante Oliva in second position. Then it's Peter Ferrari and Ivan Vantagiato. Each of those three have had some very good rounds. I don't know what your impression is, Tristan. I mean, you've covered, I think I've covered every round in different capacities. You've maybe missed a couple, but at least from the ones that I've seen, I feel like Dante's probably had the advantage on Peter and Ivan this season. But you can see he's still only 4 points ahead, so it's still very much alive. But I mean, he's the one that I would back in that battle for the runners-up spot.
Yeah, we saw in I think it was the first round of the BISC GT3 Championship where Dante Oliva was showing an incredibly dominant foot in this league, but we did see him unfortunately have a little bit less luck, especially at Imola and Autodromo Hermano Rodriguez, where we did see him drop off pace slightly, and that's exactly why you see him contesting quite tightly there for second. It hasn't been the clearest jump up for him like he would have hoped for. But for Mr. Ben Snell, on the other hand, he is currently leading with quite a dominant charge. So even if he doesn't have the greatest finisher today, he should still be pretty protected up in that P1 position. But any form of points towards the end of that championship is going to be beneficial. So Ben Snell currently holding off in second. And I mean, my goodness, Sam, look at that time. 1/1000th of a second slower than Vantagiato up in first with a 153.3 currently. And with just about 4 or so minutes left of qualifying, this is where the drivers need to get that confidence in. They're driving out in here in the rain. It is a little bit nerve-wracking when the car starts to behave not like it normally would in the dry. You'll notice that the rear will be a lot more creative in certain cars, and the front might also be a bit creative. It obviously depends on engine placement and just the general car choice, but we are seeing quite a dominant lead here from our front engine pack, the Mercs and the Fords, taking the entire slots for the podium. So all three occupied by both Mercedes and the Ford Mustang, and then Angeli just pushed out wide in the Ferrari 296. And oh, there we go. Jake Squire has unfortunately met one of those curbs, and looks like his Porsche has met the grass.
Yeah, mistake for him there. I mean, we've seen it in genuinely on iRacing, not just in the wet weather conditions, but the front engine car is very, very strong in iRacing so far this season. The Mustang really is the go-to car as far as I'm aware, which hasn't genuinely been the case. Usually it's more the rear engine cars in iRacing which have the advantage, such as the Porsche. But yeah, and that advantage may well be increased in these wet weather conditions. I'm curious as to what the grip levels are like across the session, because obviously the rain is very constant. It's not really going up and down. It's going to be pretty much the same throughout. But the drivers are still moving about the water on circuit, so it might be that there's a bit more grip because you get a bit more rubber down as well. So I mean, I'm not sure quite how much iRacing simulates that in terms of playing the rubber down, especially in these wet conditions. But the grip levels, whilst the rain is constant, won't necessarily stay the same. So we'll see if the times get better or worse. Obviously, a little bit of gravel on the circuit, as there is at the last corner as well. That might make a bit of a difference. This isn't going to be an improvement for Vantagiate, who seems to really enjoy these conditions. Ben Snell, though, lighting up the timing sectors. I think this may well be good enough for a provisional pole.
Well, currently leading the championship, it is expected to see him jump all the way up, but coming through the back straight now onto the checkered flag he goes, and that's a 153.1. So quite a big jump from 1,000 back from Vantagiato, and now a good 2.6 tenths ahead of Vantagiato. And with qualifying slowly coming towards an end, this is going to be great for Ben Snells. He'll be able to probably hold around first to third for the rest of this qualifying session, depending on what the rest of the drivers can do. Now, something that we do see often in wet weather racing, especially as the track does progress, is you'll slowly start to see that dry line beginning to form, and that dry line will be the fastest optimal route around circuit. And it might be a little bit difficult to see, especially in a cockpit cam like this, but if you're watching and you're wanting to see that dry line, just have a look when the drivers go around, and if the camera angle gives a good amount of light reflection, you should be able to see that dry line where the water is bouncing off with the reflection of the sky. You'll see that there is quite a differentiation on the dry line. It's going to be more matte. It's going to be looking like a proper road during daylight driving where there's no rain. So that dry line, as you can see just in front of the Ferrari there, you can see the tire streaks coming down towards turn number 1. That is going to be the optimal line for the cars. You can see it there, slightly lighter in color tone as the camera angle pans through, and that is going to be the optimal line for the cars to choose. And you'll see for most drivers, they'll be picking that line unless they're trying to cool their tires, which in most cases in today's race, you'll probably see them pull off of that dry line into the wet to try and get those tires nice and cool, because in wet weather racing, you will see a much higher tire pressure being applied to these cars. You'll see around 25 to 26 PSI being applied in normal dry racing, but in wet weather racing, you're looking closer to 30 to 31 PSI. And so when those tires do dry a little bit too much, they do generate too much heat and start increasing that pressure, which can become a bit volatile in terms of grip. And so that's exactly why cooling measures have to come in play here for the GT3 class. But for the time being, qualifying has officially ended, and we will go through your running order shortly, which Sam will take you through.
Yes, we are just waiting for the grid to come through, but now we can go through it. So we've got Ben Snell on pole position, as we've seen many times so far this season, but credit to Ivan Vantagiate for really pushing him and of course leading their qualifying session on the most part. Ian Noxie with a good quality up in 3rd position. There's Dante Oliva, Michael Angeli, Peter Ferraro and Ben Mitchell. Andrew Cash is in 8th position, and then it is Scott Evans, Nick Green, Jake Squire, who of course we saw have a spin, and Luke Broadbent. Everyone managed to get a lap in, at least in that session, which wasn't particularly easy to do because it's not the longest quali in the world, and of course in these wet conditions it does take a little bit longer to complete a lap around this circuit. So yes, that is good work from all the drivers. It may look like it's not raining, but it is still raining. Like I said before, it's going to be raining throughout, and the conditions will stay fairly similar, albeit the little grip changes might take a little bit of an effect for the drivers. You were mentioning the tyre pressures earlier on, Tristan. I mean, one of the difficulties for the drivers with this being a fixed setup series is that, of course, they would like to change those tyre pressures for these wet conditions, but they just have to stick with the same. So that might be something that they have to consider. They might have to sort of alter their driving just to account for those lower tyre pressures that they're having to run.
Yeah, the fixed setup obviously bringing a bit of balance to how the drivers react to the car, and doesn't allow for the drivers to get those custom setups in that can allow for a bit more pushing, and so pressures are relatively baseline according to each car type. And so, like Sam says, every single driver will have to just cope with the fixed setup provided by the iRacing platform. But from what we saw in qualifying, it looked like everybody was managing quite well. We only saw one spin off there from Jake Squire down in 10th position, but the rest of the drivers seeming to find quite a comfortable spot in all of their GT3 cars. But like Sam said, the front engine's been quite dominant in iRacing and in the rain here today, as we do have all three currently rocking out that top 3 spot of this race. Currently, though, on board, we've got Nick Green a little bit further back behind. Now Peter Ferraro up in 6th. As they come towards the end of the formation lap, you will see the brakes highlighting on all the cars as they begin to drag those brakes out and get a bit of heat into them as they come down towards turn 1. It is nice and cold, so those brakes will be nice and blue on the dash. But for the time being, we pull up out of Catalunya corner towards the main straight and down to turn 1. It is Ben Snell holding off from Vantagiato and Noxie just a bit further behind. Everybody trying to jump, but we do see a pull away there from Ben Snell. It is green lights, and away we go down the main straight here of Barcelona Catalunya for round number 6 of the BISC GT3 Championship. Ben Snell holds off very strong. Ian Noxie is on the inside line though in his grey Ford Mustang. Can he make the corner though? Gets very close and touchy there with Vantagiato, and oh, there's been a big problem there with Vantagiato in his Merc, and he seems to have fallen off a little bit there. Ferraro also not having the most comfortable start and dropping slightly off there in his Ford Mustang. Lots of car changes coming over here because Ferraro was in the Ferrari 296, and now we see him out here in a big blue Mustang. So different choices in tonight's racing at Barcelona Catalunya. Oh, somebody's off at the back. That looks to be Scott Evans or Ben Mitchell. I believe it is Ben Mitchell of the Lamborghini. Looks like he's managed to recover himself though, just touching the sand there, and back onto the track he goes now down towards the hairpin, well, semi-hairpin. It is a relatively hairpin style, but breaks out just before the 180-degree mark. Now up towards that back straight and then the actual hairpin. Looks like Ben Snell has been able to hold his lead here, but Ian Noxie will be feeling the contention from Vantagiato in the next couple of laps.
Yeah, some pretty aggressive driving, some sends on the inside. I mean, ran into T1. I really wasn't fancying Noxie's chance of getting stopped because he had to drive through a big puddle which would have compromised his braking ability. And he still managed to make it. Also, great move from Nick Green into T4. He was able to make that off, and then we saw Evans go for it at T5, and now we've just seen Peter Ferrari make up an important move there on Andrew Cash, who had an awesome launch to Cash. Was up 3 places, now just up the 2 places. And Nick Green as well up 3 places, and he seems to be chasing down Andrew Cash as well. As Ben Mitchell just overtaking Luke Broadbent. So Mitchell with a very poor start, and he's now been able to get himself at least one of those places back, but he did start up in P7. I think that off you identified at T4 affected the league organizer quite badly.
Definitely so. We'll get your live timing tower up to you shortly. Just to know that though, this is our Heat 1 race, not the main race, because if you've been watching the BISC GT3 Championship for the past 5 rounds, you'll know that there is a double heat in tonight's event. So we do have our first heat, which is a 10-minute sprint down towards the line, and often you'll see drivers pushing a little bit harder because it is just a 10-minute race. But after that, we do have our big 30-minute race, the heat number 2, where all the points are going to count. And so for the time being, Ben Snell looks to be doing exactly what he's been doing for the past 5 rounds and showing the dominance of the Marlboro Merc GT3 from Australia here, and just pushing on strong. So for the Australians, it's around about, I'd say, 8 o'clock at night. For Sam and myself, it's around about 11 o'clock in the afternoon. Ben Mitchell has gone off again. Not too sure. Was that a disconnect of sort? Not too sure. Doesn't look like we're able to find him. We're looking at the nice streets around Barcelona. There we go. We found Ben Mitchell. So what has happened here in this replay? And loses the rear there on the curbs, and then looks like he has a little bit of a netcode lag out as we go back towards the pit lane. So not sure if Ben Mitchell is going to come back out for this 10-minute sprint, as he doesn't have much time to catch up towards the pack. So unfortunate there for him, but thankfully still a full 30 minutes left of racing. Nick Green, though, currently on a pretty good contention here with Angeli in 8th.
Yep, Green having to hold on to that position at the moment. We tried to get a couple of replays off the start. I'm curious as to getting an onboard with Noxy down into T1. You can see he has to drive over all these puddles, and he's immediately sliding. Did well not to break on the white line. That's pushing it, I think, when it comes to sort of legality, but I imagine he'll get away with that without a penalty. But that was ambitious from Noxy.
Yeah, I think even if you go further in that replay on board there with Vantagiato, you'll see how badly he was actually affected in that turn 1 chicane from that touch. Because, I mean, if you think about a touch in dry weather, it is a small infringement, but in wet weather racing, a small touch like that can push your car off into a bit of a wet line. And I believe that's exactly what happened there to Vantagiato. And that looks to be Angeli, who's lost the rear of his Ferrari 296. And that's often an occurrence here on the big right-hander at Barcelona in the wet, because the grip is very, very tight. There's not a lot of slip angle to play with, and unfortunately Angeli has found his match, as you can see, on the outside line. That's not the dry line here in today's race, and then tries to rejoin the dry line, and there we go. The main culprit is the green curb, the green track paint on the outside line, and that's going to be extremely glossy on these tires. And exactly what has happened here is Mr. Angeli unfortunately losing the rear of his Ferrari. You can see a massive puddle on that track, and the rain is quite light, but it looks like it's building quite heavily all over the track, as we're seeing quite a lot of puddle and spray as we go through the rest of the grid. But 5 minutes left of racing now. Vantage looks like Peter Ferraro almost trying to make a bit of a dive here onto the inside of Dante Oliva. He does have to watch out though, because he does have Cash a little bit further behind, so one too aggressive dive could potentially throw himself to back towards Cash. And you can see just behind Ferraro there, Cash is slowly starting to pull up towards the Slipstream Autosport driver. So has to be careful there from Peter Ferraro if he wants to keep fighting here for 5th, chasing down on Oliver.
Yeah, because Ferraro overtook Cash earlier on, didn't he? But he hasn't really been able to pull away. Certainly a weak final sector there. I mean, he lost 0.8 of a second to the driver behind just in that final sector. It didn't look like a super obvious mistake, but maybe ran it in a little bit deep into T10 and just try and get a little bit of a better view of T1 is Cash heading into that first corner. Of course, one of the big things in iRacing is the wet weather lines. Do you sort of drive on the racing line or the normal line? I think generally in the wet weather conditions, you know, I don't drive these GT3 cars a whole lot, as that is a back marker, right? That's Ben Mitchell getting back out on circuit, so don't worry too much if he gets overtaken. I think actually, I think people have found, particularly in the GT3s, that actually running the normal racing lane is often the way to go. And it can feel a little bit limiting, and it can sort of reduce your overtaking opportunities as well. But keep an eye out on that, see if drivers take different lines. Of course, you know, you identified it right at the top, just around the curbs, there's often a lot of puddles, and you do have to avoid sort of those like curbing areas. But around most of the corners, you'll see the drivers take the normal racing line. But yeah, watch out for any of them who try a karting line by going way offline and try to get off the slick part of the circuit.
Well, I believe that's exactly what Angeli tried in that past replay. He just went too wide though and touched one of the curbs, but he was actually holding on quite strong on the outside line there in the wet. He was receiving quite a lot of good cooling on those tires and just touching one of those curbs, and that's all it takes to spin these cars around. But if you're also wondering why the curbs do get so puddled, one thing you should know about racetracks is that this is not normal tar or concrete or any form of track material that you would see on a normal road in your city or your town. This is specialized race asphalt, which has gridding systems built in that tends to pull any form of rain or water away from it, just to keep racing alive as long as possible. Now, obviously, the curbs won't have this because curbs are not made of asphalt. They're made of their completely own substance, as well as being painted over for the track effect. So they've got none of those draining effects that you see on the asphalt, which is why the curves become so volatile in raining situations. But back on top here with Ian Noxie, currently holding quite strong in second, and we've seen Ian have a little bit of a rough season in the past. We saw a couple of netcode issues in Imola and a couple of other tracks before, but he looks to be holding on quite strong here at Barcelona, Catalunya, and Vantagiato has not been able to make a dive on the inside line just as of yet. And usually we would see Vantagiato getting quite a good move, and I almost just called it there. Vantagiato looking very aggressively on the inside line into that semi hairpin, but not enough to make the position count. Now Yanoxi still pushing up towards the next couple of corners. He'll have to try and hold it out though, but 1 minute left of racing. Can Ben Snell hold on to take P1?
Yeah, he pulled away a lot in the early stages, didn't he? And then since then, he's just been maintaining the gap at about 3 seconds. I was just watching Andrew Cash, who, of course, we were seeing getting very close to Peter Ferrari, but he's run it a bit deep into T5, and that's dropped him off the back now of Ferrari, so a bit of respite now for him. Jake Squire coming under a bit of pressure from Scott Evans. Evans on that lap was 6/10 faster, so I think if we're going to see a move before the end of the race, this is most likely where it's going to come from, and we might see it as soon as T10. Of course, we're using the motorbike layout, which is not that sort of similar to what we have nowadays. Of course, you have the two layouts on this older scan of Barcelona. I think it was scanned back in 2018. So you got the Grand Prix layout, and you got the historic layout, which sort of the bikes used to use. Nowadays, you don't have either. You have sort of one which is sort of halfway in the middle of the pair. But this one, it is much more nice to drive, but it's not as big a braking zone down into T10, so it does make overtaking a bit trickier at the end of that back straight, as that's a little bit wide there for Squire. That would have compromised his traction going onto the main straight, but it seems like he's still got decent straight line speed.
Yeah, let's hope for Squire holding down an 8th position, because this is it now, the final lap, and wanting to hold that position just above, and not enough though. Evans goes for a deep lunge on the inside line into turn number 1 through the chicanes though. Can the Porsche with the better rotation try and outmatch the Ferrari? And here we have an almost similar situation to Angeli and Nick Green, but looks like Squire is going to tuck in instead of trying to fight along the outside barrier. And so looks like quite a good overtake there from Scott Evans, the number 77 from Australia, making a decent lunge on the likes of Squire. So nicely into 8th position here, and that's going to be a good jump on the final lap, as the white flag definitely will be waved for Ben Snell. Not too sure where he is around track at the moment, but he will probably coming around for that checkered flag shortly. You can see him just building up towards the semi back straight over there. And Noxie has actually managed to keep within a 3.3 second gap. It hasn't been too much of a pull away though from Snell. Like you said, within the past couple of laps, he pulled away massively at the start and has just not been able to pull away further. But Vantagiato getting very aggressive, and unfortunately Ian Noxie losing the rear. He's trying extremely hard to keep Vantagiato behind, and coming through the hairpin. Well, that's not actually a hairpin in this layout, but coming through that left-hander, just not finding the traction there in his Mustang. But thankfully not off the track. He did get caught up there with Vantagiato, but he has lost the position on the final couple of corners. But through the final corner of Catalunya comes Ben Snell for the heat race of number 1 and finishes off strong in P1. The championship leader extends that gap. Second though, Vantagiato takes a nice jump into second, with Inoxi in third, Oliva and Ferraro following in 4th and 5th. Cash just managing to hold on there in 6th position, as well as Nick Green and Evans a bit behind. Let's have a bit of a look though, coming towards that left-hander. What happened here with Ian Noxie? And as you can see, fighting on left, he has the wet puddle, and just too much rear acceleration through that puddle. And like I said, thankfully Vantagiato was there as a bit of a barrier to hold him, as he didn't veer off into the gravel. But that is the end of your heat number 1. It will be quite a quick finishing procedure, as we don't have the usual 20 or 22 cars on grid. We only have the 12 here, but for the time being, it is going to be Ben Snell to Vantagiato and Noxie who finish off on the top 3 spot. As we now try and prepare, we'll have a bit of a warm-up here, about 3 minutes for the drivers to get themselves ready for the big 30-minute sprint.
Yeah, I think we can show the results here if we actually start from P1. Here we go. So Snell in the lead. In the end, it was up to 6 seconds to Vantaggiato because of that late spin for Ian Noxie. Then it was Dante Oliva, Peter Ferraro, Andrew Cash, Nick Green, Scott Evans, Jake Squire, Michael Angeli, Luke Broadbent, and Ben Mitchell, who was a lap down, but credit to Ben for getting back out onto circuit. I mean, just looking at that onboard for Noxie, you could really just see how wet it was down into T10. And I was talking earlier on about how, you know, the rain levels are fairly consistent out there, but that doesn't mean that the actual water on the circuit is consistent. And it really did seem at the start of that race one there was a lot more puddles on track, and even now that we go into the warm-up, there seems to be more puddles on track. And I think that might be because whenever you transition from one session to another in iRacing, you progress by 10 minutes, and so if there's no tracks out on there, then iRacing sort of simulates those puddles being built up, and then once you've got those cars out there, they can sort of disperse those puddles a bit again. But that is sort of that's quite a lake now down at T10, and we'll run on board with Vantaggiato in this warm-up, see if it's got any bigger.
Yep, let's see if the track has changed. As like Sam was mentioning, we have a bit of time progression here, so we might see a bit more puddle build-up. That is a huge puddle that Vantaggiato just went through. I'm not too sure if, I mean, that puddle was there in the previous race, but I don't think it was that big. It didn't span across the entire track. There was a short gap on the left-hand side, but that has completely covered that entire exit. So drivers will have to be very careful with putting the foot down on that corner exit. There's another puddle as Vantaggiato just splashes out the back of his Mercedes. And just a reminder, this is just a bit of a warm-up for the drivers to get going. There's no form of qualifying or anything or intermission session before our second race. It's just a bit of time for the drivers to get used to the track yet again after a bit more rainfall. So here's Scott Evans coming through the left-hander. It looks like it's got relatively the same amount of rain. You can see that dry line has slowly started to completely disappear as the cars have been in for a bit, but they'll have to form it yet again in this 30-minute race. Thankfully, it will be a lot more prominent in a 30-minute race compared to a 10-minute race, as there'll be more cars going around more consistently and for a longer period of time. But quite a lot of water sitting across the track. The drivers are going to have to be very careful with their throttle input.
Yeah, they really are going to have to be wary of it, and they do have like traction control in these cars, but they tend to run it a little bit low. I think that is something you can still change. I really ought to know that. I think that is something that you can change on a fixed setup, but I might be wrong. Maybe you can't actually. Maybe you can't. Maybe it's just brake bias that you can change. So yeah, it does make it tricky for the drivers. Once again, thanks to a few of our sponsors: Bowden's Own, Benji's YouTube channel, Raceforge, Hyperspec, Jack Ashton Sim Coaching, Hair Forum, and RBMX Designs for supporting this series. We've had a lot of fun broadcasting it. Have us at Apex Racing TV, and yeah, still looking forward to, of course, this round, and then we've got a week's break, and then we've got 2 more rounds to go after this. So yeah, looking forward to seeing the home straight of this season.
Yeah, season slowly coming towards a close, but that does mean these final dire rounds are going to be crucially important to get those points crunched in. And so let's just hope that our championship contenders can really fight it out. For the time being, like we mentioned, Ben Mitchell's got quite a strong lead over the rest of the grid, but that second position slot is completely up for grabs. I mean, first is technically also up for grabs if Ben doesn't have a great race for the next couple of rounds. But from what we've seen, it looks like he is pretty good in terms of mindset for the next couple of rounds. But let's go through the starting procedure for tonight's final race. So Ben Snell obviously starting off in P number 1 with Ivan Vantaggiato in second. Ian Noxie will take third, and Dante Oliva taking fourth. Ferraro in fifth with Andrew Cash rounding out the third row in 6th position. Nick Green in 7th with Scott Evans in 8th position. We then have we then have Jake Squire in 9th with Michael Angeli in 10th. We saw him have that bit of a spin out in qualifying and in the previous race. Luke Broadbent in 11th position, and Ben Mitchell, the league runner, unfortunately down in 12th position after that previous round result, where we saw him really struggle with grip on that Lamborghini Huracan. So let's hope for a bit of a better race here. The drivers are lined up towards the back straight side as they prepare for the start of the race on formation lap. The brake dragging will take effect. You can see the tire streak marks are there as they begin to create the dry line, but won't be too prominent right now as it is still the formation laps. The drivers are at a halted speed. This isn't the full speed of a GT3 car if you only did join now, but you can see the gantry lights, the four, or the if you watch F1, they're just called the 5 red lights, but they are actually called the gantry lights in racing. You can see them at the top of your screen now. And when those lights go green, it is all down to the drivers here. Ben Mitchell, Vantagiato up in front with Noxie on a lever a little bit further behind. Will Noxie do the same thing, Sam? I'm not too sure if he will. Let's see if he takes a courageous dive on the inside line. But coming around the Catalunya final corner towards the main straight, what will Ben Mitchell do to defend his car, defend his position into turn number 1? You can see Vantagiato trying to creep up, but there we do have it. The cars are pulling away. It is green flag as we see lights out, and away we go. Ben Snell gets an absolutely phenomenal jump there on the start, and it completely pulls away from Vantagiato, and it looks like Vantagiato is going to lose out yet again from Ian Noxie on the launch. He takes the inside line, and there's another Ford Mustang who's completely missed his braking marker, and that's Ferraro, who pushes into Noxie and into Vantagiato. So just a chain reaction effect. Angeli's also off, and Angeli with a bit of a dangerous rejoin yet again, touching Vantagiato. That's 2 incidents in one corner, and it looks like he's actually pulled the car into tow. And very unfortunate turn 1. We'll have a good replay to see what happened there. But my goodness, Sam, what a chaotic start to heat number 2.
Yeah, and we were sort of waiting for the same move as we saw in race 1, right? From Ian Noxie, but then he was quite cautious into T1. Ferraro wasn't, and drove straight into the back of him. And we have seen a few penalties given out this season, and I wonder if that will be another post-race penalty for Ferraro, because yeah, I think he was the catalyst for that. And then there was almost a separate incident further back involving Angeli and Broadbent, I think, and maybe Jake Squire as well with that dangerous rejoin. So yeah, quite a mess. We will get a replay of it quite soon. But in terms of the movers and shakers so far on this race, then we've got Ferraro up 3, and yeah, Lever up 1, Mitchell up 5 impressively from the back of the grid. So some good progress made by him, but Ben Snell leads by about a second, and yeah, about a second.
Yeah, it's great. He got a great pull off the line though from Ben Snell. I mean, we saw it. He was obviously controlling the pace of the field on a rolling start, but he really just got the jump. Most would expect you to jump just as you exit the final corner, but he actually held it for a little bit and then decided to jump at a very unknown time, and it was very inconvenient for second and third, but very convenient for Ben Snell as he's pulled away. 1.3 seconds of a gap already to Ferraro, who now trails in second. I'm not too sure, Sam, if we can get those replays of the start of the race. I think that would be the most interesting highlight, just to see the chain reaction effect there caused by Ferraro and just a couple of other drivers there. Angeli also with the dangerous rejoin, but here we have it. So Ian Noxie on the inside line, and I think he met his braking point quite well. It was actually Ferraro. You can see there's first bump, there's second bump into Vantagiato. So off goes Vantagiato. There off goes Angeli and a couple of other drivers, and as you can see, joining the track is Vantagiato over there, and he just gets tapped yet again by Angeli, and backwards he goes and decides to take a bit of a tow there back to the pit lane. So very chaotic race start. We had about 8 drivers off in turn number 1, and I mean that's over 70% of our grid and in tonight's racing. But he has on board with Luke Broadbent. Okay, I've never seen an accident like that, but completely losing it on the main straight, and off into the grass he goes. A bit of a fidget spinner into the side of the Porsche and Angeli, and then there's the rejoin, as you can see yet again. Jake Squire also got a bit of a bump there from that rejoin, but very, very eventful start, Sam.
Yeah, it sure was. He hit the white line, the pit exit line, and once you brake on that with one tyre, then you got no control of the car. So that's hopefully not a mistake that he's going to make again. I'm sure a lot of the other drivers who have made that mistake in the past knew not to do that. Like even if it means that you straddle over the white line, so as you don't put a tyre on it, you should be all right. So yeah, ideally you want to be either on the inside of that pit exit line or on the outside. So yeah, that's unfortunate for a couple of the cars that he collided with. We've had Vantagiato back to the pits, but he is back out there because he wants to get as many points as he can for his championship bid for second place. A fantastic race one for him, getting that runners-up spot on the last lap. Would have gotten back a fair few points, but now he's got, well, ironically, it's his championship driver and his fellow countryman, and his teammate actually, Peter Ferrari, who messed him up. Of course, they both drive for Slipstream Autosport, so yeah, that might be heading back towards Ferrari in terms of that battle for second place in the championship if it ends like this.
Indeed, it will. We'll have to just see how the championship stands after this race, after round number 6 over here. But for the time being, it looks like Ben Snell is actually not running away like we saw him run away in the sprint race, because in the feature over here, you can see Ferraro in his big blue Hot Wheels Mustang is actually not letting him run away like we saw. We saw about a 3.3 second gap after about 3 or 4 laps from Ben Snell. Now only 1.8 seconds from Ferraro. So the drivers behind looking to try and keep it quite competitive with the driver up in front. But Ferraro also has to watch out because just behind is the creeping car of Oliva. And Cash is also in that fight. Unfortunately, Vantagiato, I think Vantagiato is back out on circuit. I can see his lap timer is ticking, which is a good sign to see him back out. I think he just towed because the damage was just too much. But on board now with Nick Green, who we saw have a bit of a tangle there with Angeli in the previous race, where then Angeli went off. But this time around, he's in a bit of a fight here with who looks to be Evans, Sean Evans, a little bit further behind. Ben Mitchell just a bit further as well. So Nick Green, the main objective, chasing onto the backside of Cash in 4th position. Can he do it in the green and black Ferrari 296? And all very, very dangerous curb ride over there. You could see the water splashing. And even more dangerous ride over there. That's Sean Evans, who just takes a little bit too much speed on that right hander and just losing the rear of his red Ferrari into the grass trap. He goes, thankfully manages to save it. So incredible amount of skill coming to keep that car on track. But now he'll feel the pressure from Noxie and Ben Mitchell from behind.
Yeah, I will say it's Scott Evans who just had that incident. Sean Evans, I think, is the person who presents Hot Ones. Yes, Scott Evans with that one. We'll get a replay of it. As he turns in here. I mean, I don't know about you. I don't really see much what he did wrong there. It seemed like he was following the same line as the drivers ahead, but maybe bit too aggressive on the steering input, I don't know.
Yeah, a little bit too aggressive, but like you mentioned as well, the rain's coming down very hard. So just unfortunately getting a little bit too much puddle in there on the bottom side of the Ferrari 296 and losing the grip that he had built up. So very unfortunate there for Scott Evans, but like we do mention, thankfully managed to recover it. Oh, what has happened there as well? He just missed his braking point and went over the curb. Thankfully, no acceleration over that curb. Otherwise, we would have seen another spin. But he has lost the position after Ben Mitchell from the BIP Esports team. The number 18 Lamborghini takes the jump on the limping car. And Ian Noxie looking to make an attack as well now. Unfortunately, Scott Evans has lost all of his drive and looks like Scott Evans will try and make a dive into the next left-hander. Is he holding that inside line? Is he getting a bit of space? It doesn't look like it. The door gets closed on him and he'll have to settle behind Scott Evans. Jason Squire, Jake Squire, a little bit further behind as well in 9th. Will try and catch up to this battle for 6th. For the time being, Ben Mitchell having a much better race, Sam. I mean, he finished 12th. He's now up in 6th, so 6 positions up. Just about 8 minutes in, so almost the exact same distance of the previous race, and now leading the charge in 6th. Oh, Ian Noxie almost has a bit of a flick there. As you can see, the water is growing quite intense there on that final Catalunya corner, and almost losing his Mustang into the same trap that Scott Evans got involved in. And look at the racing that we're watching. Just spray all over the windshield. Noxie going on that inside line again, trying to get a bit of cool down on those tires and find a way around the cars in front. He does have a slightly better advantage, as we've seen that the front engine drivers do have a bit better of a statistical improvement around these kind of tracks, and especially in iRacing. But what can he do coming through this right-hander? He does look to be fighting quite hard with Scott Evans. Ben Mitchell pulling quite neatly away now, but Scott Evans has lost that place from the big gray and black McLaren-looking Mustang. McLaren, I mean 2002 McLaren, not the new orange papaya McLaren, but still all together very nice liveries. Great run though from Ian Noxie. Up into 7th place he goes.
yeah, had to work quite hard for that one, did Noxie, but I think a move that he was going to make eventually. He's, of course, got excellent pace, as we saw from race 1 earlier on, and he can now set his sights on Ben Mitchell, who, like you said, is having a much better time of it. Oh my goodness, Jake Squire has hit the gravel, and the gravel has turned him around. I don't think there was any contact with another driver. Somehow on our timing screen that doesn't count as a crash, which I think we need some calibration in our system, because that's a crash if I've ever seen one. Let's see what happens. This camera's going to get destroyed because he's going to go wide. He's going to hit the curb. He hits the curb, goes wide, and then the gravel is so grippy, according to iRacing, that it just picks up the car. And then, like I said, the camera dies. So there you go. Back to live pictures. And there he is.
There's some realism for you.
Yeah.
The camera gets trampled in a spin. Maybe the gravel's just a little bit fermented or like squeezed together from the rain, because that gripped like a drag strip asphalt. I mean, he literally hooked and just spun and spun and spun. Thankfully, this is virtual racing. If that was real racing, it would be quite intense, and we'd need a bit of a head injury assessment and seeing what's going on with our driver. But all he needs to do is maybe throw a bit of a fist or a hand at his wheel, dang it, man, but he'll get back out there all safe and sound. Unfortunately, down in 12th position there for Jake Squire, and so he'll have to try and recover in the next 25 minutes, but down in 8th position now with Michael Angeli, the number 7 from ATR Motorsport, trying to keep that Ferrari pouncing around track. He did have a bit of an intense one in the in the first sprint race. We did see him have a couple of incidents, and there the rain comes down yet again, as we saw on that one camera angle. A little bit further up ahead, though, Scott Evans will try and stay away from Michael Angeli and as close as possible to Ben Mitchell to potentially make yet another position move on the sixth place Lamborghini, but he'll have to work quite hard for it. Never mind, my goodness, that is commentator's curse out of note. I just said he'll have to work hard, and Ben Mitchell meets the gravel. This time, fortunately, the Lamborghini seems to be more weighted on its base and doesn't flip around. We'll get a bit of a replay there of what happened, but that is just unfortunate there for Ben Mitchell. Down into 8th place he goes.
Yes. Let's see how he avoided the flip. I guess he just wasn't horizontal as he went onto, once again, not necessarily even on curb, but just on that puddle. Maybe the puddle drags him in, and then, yeah, okay, he's not horizontal to it. I mean, like, of course, we should say it's totally dumb that iRacing flips the car in that situation. I don't think that would actually happen in real life, especially with how smooth the gravel is on iRacing. It's like a sand pit almost, when in reality, if you look at most gravel tracks, it's very bumpy. Maybe on like the big events they might comb it out a little bit, but generally it is very bumpy. So whereas these ones are like a Caribbean beach, are these gravel traps. So yeah, it is a little bit silly that iRacing flips it around, and you see it in other sims as well. I think it was Project Motor Racing. I think I was seeing footage of where like people are basically like turning in. Was it Project Motor Racing? Maybe it was another sim actually, but I think it was Project Motor Racing, which got released recently. And drivers are just like putting in a lot of steering lock in like the LMP cars, and it just flips the car. And that sort of just like calculations when it comes to like tire grip, we sort of take it for granted in real life that stuff doesn't happen, but it doesn't take a whole lot of like miscalculations when it comes to the tires and different scenarios for the car literally just to flip over, where the grip on the tires is so much that it takes off the weight of the car. So yes, iRacing unfortunately don't quite have that calculation right when it comes to wet gravel, I would argue. But if someone's willing to find me some footage of cars flipping in very smooth wet gravel in real life, then I am willing to be stood corrected.
I'll have to see now if Sam will get stood corrected, like he says, because I frankly have also not seen it. I mean, I've seen a car roll in very dry, like heaped up gravel, which, it obviously makes sense. It's what the gravel is there to do, is to stop the car by any means. But when it's watered down and so flat, like we can see on our screen over here, I doubt we're going to be seeing any form of flipping. And so 100% on that same train as Sam is, but we'll have to just see. Maybe it'll happen again in this race. I'm not going to call it though, because that's just bad luck for the commentator's curse. But on board with Peter Ferraro up in 2nd position, and he has dramatically dropped off from Ben Snell. 4.3 seconds of a gap now from the leader towards Ferraro, and now Oliva is within striking distance, and so is Cash actually. So Cash has done an incredible job to stay in this fight and stay just behind Oliva, as you can see over there. So lots of pressure being shown towards the Mustang driver of Ferraro, and on his back wing, this is all he's going to be seeing in the rearview mirror for the rest of his race if he doesn't pull away in the next couple of minutes, because Oliva, we've seen him in previous rounds, a very quick driver and very good to get up in front. And Andrew Cash, somebody who we've seen have a pretty decent season in terms of staying in the mid-pack, is now fighting neatly up into 4th position onto the backside of the podium spots, the final one being held off by Oliva. And lots of swerving happening there from Ferraro, so not too sure how comfortable he is in the Mustang. It definitely looks like Oliva is a lot more comfortable in his red BMW M4 compared to the big Mustang, so we'll have to just keep on watching to see what goes on between these drivers. And remember, if someone clips a curve here, it might be the end of this battle. Further though, Green is also a bit further back in 5th as he tries to make way up towards this fight. But for the time being, the rest of the grid is relatively separated. The 3 over here are the only ones in contention. The rest of the drivers all within quite a good amount of time between each other. And so it's quite a relaxing one. All that the drivers have to watch out for is the deathly puddles and curbs. So maybe not relaxing in your books, but I'd say relaxing in mine if you don't have to fight too hard. But they'll still have to keep all that focus to make it towards the end of this race.
Yeah, Andrew Cash, of course, is based or has the Jamaican flag on his profile. So if he is based in the Caribbean, of course, one, he'll be familiar with these very nice beaches that we have on the side of the Catalunya circuit. And the other thing is that it'll be very, very early in the morning. You're talking about 4 in the morning, perhaps. 4 hours time difference, probably 5 hours time difference, I think, in Jamaica compared to where I am, and it's currently 10:20 in the morning, so that would be about 5 in the morning for him. Now, he might be based down under. That's probably the most logical thing. But if he is based in Jamaica, then full credit to Andrew Cash for getting up in the night, basically, where I'm sure it will be very, very dark at the moment, so credit to him. The other thing I was thinking was, of course, Ferrari, we pretty much know will get a penalty, right? Like, I think he deserves a penalty from our perspective for that lap-on incident. So I wonder if that's going to adjust how Dante Oliva fights this one, whether it's worth him maybe not being so desperate to go for the move and instead be quite patient and sort of wait for that post-race penalty if he thinks it's going to come. I think that might be a wise thing for him to do rather than risk getting involved in a collision.
Yeah, like you mentioned, if Vantagiato does, I mean, if Oliva does try and make a jump here, and it doesn't go his way, unfortunately, he will, even if Ferraro gets that end of race penalty, if he does throw himself away here, he loses that opportunity to fight up towards first. So you can see definitely a bit of a calmer strategy being shown here by Oliva, not trying to attack too hard. Of course, it is in the rain, so it will make drivers a little bit more conscious about their actions, but still very calm driving here from Dante Oliva. He's not trying to dive onto every kind of corner and make way onto Ferraro. He's just trying to keep it relatively clean. And remember, he does also have the likes of Andrew Cash just further behind, who will try and push up and also pose a threat to that podium. So Oliva has to cover 2 ends. Ferraro only has to cover 1, and Cash also only has to cover 1. So Oliva, currently the hotspot here in this battle, will try and chase up and make himself the driver with only 1 end to catch, because here he comes down now
on the white line,
the first straight, and on the white line braking. Peter Ferraro almost getting a bit of a Hot Wheels moment over there and slipping right off the circuit, but very defensive play there against Oliva, and manages to keep the Mustang up ahead. And very, very tight contention now, because Cash has gained a lot of time now after that switcheroo, and now will look to try and dive up into the inside of Oliva, almost cutting his nose over there. And these 3 fighting heavily. A little bit of a dive there from Oliva, and shunts Ferraro off to the right. And Cash has benefited from both of these drivers. Looks like he's going to get both of them in one corner, but Oliva will have the inside towards the next left-hander. Ferraro loses a position. Great amount of defense on the outside from Andrew Cash, but doesn't look like it's going to be enough to hold off from Oliva. And Oliva will take second place. Where will Andrew Cash sit? Still fighting on the outside line, and there's a contact, and fortunately not off into the gravel, but that will slow him down tremendously. So Andrew Cash back down towards 4th. Ferraro moves up into 3rd, and now it's just been switched around slightly. Oliva now up in front, and Ferraro in the middle of a bit of a sandwich.
Oh, great battle that was. Oh, sorry, no, we're going to have to go back to live pictures. I'm ever so sorry, everyone. Ever so sorry, because we just missed something quite important. Oliva got sent by Ferrari. I thought it was safe to go to the replay. We will get... Well, I mean, now I don't want to go to another replay, do I? But we will get a replay of that, I think. Yeah, let's go for it now, okay. So this was a bit of a send. Let's get it from the onboard of from Peter Ferrari, sorry. Because of course he's just been sent. I mean, that's pretty bad there from Ferrari, honestly. Like, he's a long way back. He will argue that Oliva did the exact same to him on T4, which was the replay I was trying to get originally. But Ferrari could have 2 penalties going his way, and I think he needs to. Yeah, tensions might be getting a little bit high, and we've still got 15 minutes to go.
Yeah, that's not the greatest driving we've seen yet today in the rain, and like you mentioned, Ferrari might be facing a little bit of backlash from that one, as he, like you say, he might have argued it's the same, but I mean, he has the replay of Dante Oliva. He is a lot closer compared to what Peter Ferrara was, and looks like, I mean, that's
pretty bad as well, to be fair.
I think it is also pretty bad.
I think it's even, to be honest.
It is pretty even.
Yeah, if they cancel each other out, and then he sort of outbreak himself. The outbreaks, nah, that's all good there, to be fair. I mean, there was a bit more contact with Cash. I think Cash is the one who's innocent of all of that. So, okay, I sort of understand a little bit more now the move from Ferrari. But obviously, you know, if there are stewards in this event, so like, oh, Ferrari's way off now. Ferrari was ahead of these guys, right? So, I mean, you keep on going to these replays and miss stuff. But here we go.
Yeah, let's see what happened to Ferraro now. So. Just not the best of luck coming towards him. This is now leading this 3-wide pack. Does he take it too wide? Indeed, he does. And he loses the Mustang's grip. And fortunately for him, not on the grapple trap. He is able to swivel the car around and put it back towards the correct direction. But loses out quite a lot. There he loses out to Nick Green as well, coming towards the left-hander. And so dropping down 2 positions back to where he started at the beginning of this race. And so Ferraro, I mean, even though the incident was kind of both of them doing the same thing, I think he does need to tone down the aggression a little bit. He is driving very much like in a bit of a dry circumstance, but this is very much wet weather racing, and you have to be careful of cars around you and also just controlling your car. So a little bit of ease must come from him. Cash pulls into the pit lane, though, not too sure what that's about. I think that's the mandatory that we do usually see in every single round over here. So Cash, the first driver to come in for his pit stop, getting a bit of fuel in and possibly some new tires. And again, white line again for Ferraro, and he was playing on that white line. You could see the rear end dancing over that pit exit line, and fortunately for him, he's not losing it. Thankfully able to keep control of the car. Unfortunately, not like we saw with Broadbent at the start of this race. But for the time being, he'll still push on strong just behind Nick Green, who now has the final podium spot.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with that white line now. Like, I could understand it earlier on the race start. You know, it was I think it was Jake Squire who was using it and messed up his braking down into, or maybe it was Luke Broadbent who messed up his braking down into to T1 on that one. You know, the visibility is not so good, and maybe Broadbent wasn't familiar with you know, not wanting to use that. And now we've seen a couple of the top guys use it quite late on in this race. Oh, we've got Cash versus Noxie. Noxie underneath. Noxie is through. Remember, Noxie has got his pit stop done already. So those 3 battling earlier on. Oh, Noxie's overshot it. He's not going to make it. Ah, okay. Well, it was looking good for a moment there for Ian, because I was going to say, with Oliva, Ferraro and Cash all battling so hard for that P2, I thought it brought Noxie back into play, who of course got spun round at turn 1. And I was thinking, yeah, this is working really well for him. He's back in the fight for P2. Of course, now he's gone off. Even despite that, I think he'll still be P4, because I think Oliva is going to have to pick quite soon, albeit not on this lap, and will probably come out around those guys. So yeah, I mean, that would be quite a result for Noxie if he could go basically from the back, as he was after T1, onto the podium. But oh, was Snell? What's happened with Snell? suddenly lost a lot of time.
Oh.
He crashed
Yeah, he's
apparently.
dropping. Yeah, he's dropping quite a lot over there, and Lever is right onto the backside of him now. So hopefully, yep, indeed, if we can get a replay. What happened to Ben Snell? So, oh, there it is on the exit of the final corner, just completely getting a bit of a snap on that curb. And what can he do? Oh, good, a very, very good 360 flick over there. I mean, usually you can see those going on endlessly with the driver not ending up facing the right direction. But thankfully, this time around, he does manage to spin the car facing the correct direction, and back onto the start he goes. Fortunately, doesn't lose out on P number 1. He has a fight down to turn number 1. It's Andrew Cash, who has already pitted, and I think Nick Green just came out of the pit lane possibly, and fighting on strong. Though Cash will keep that place, and up into third place he goes. Aliva still has to pit, I believe, Sam, so this is not looking too great for him, but obviously there is a 34-second gap between him and Cash. We'll have to see who gets the undercut or overcut strategy correct, but Ben Snell is yet again extending that lead after a bit of a spin. Oh, Andrew Cash goes off, just a little bit of grip, not showing presence, and out onto the gravel he goes on the left, and he has actually just lost it from Ian Noxie, where he was ahead. Now he's lost out. There's Luke Broadbent, who's unfortunately been lapped a couple of times here.
He's
from
off.
a couple
Change
of drivers.
of lead.
Oh, Ben Snell
Snell's
is
made
off
another
again.
mistake. My goodness. Just before the pit stops were going to be made, this is what happened to Ben Snell. And the driver who's barely made a mistake all season, he's made 2 mistakes in less than a lap. It's that river across the circuit at T10. And yeah, he's really lost a lot of confidence, has Ben Snell. So he's still very much in the fight for the lead. But how this race has opened up for Dante Oliva, we've had another change to lead because Oliva has come into the pit. So what can Snell do on this last lap? I'm surprised just how much in it are Nick Green, because of course Green has jumped Andrew Cash, who I feel like lost a lot of time in all that sequence. I don't remember Cash really making a mistake. He didn't have a particularly long pit stop, and yet he's behind now both Green and Noxie. Of course, we saw him go off at T4 earlier on this lap, but I'm surprised he wasn't more in it then. But let's see where Lever is. I imagine Lever will be quite far clear of all of these guys, and he is, because they're only just going onto the pit straight. Oliva is accelerating, and he's going to have a few seconds of an advantage. So Oliva looking good. It will be Oliva and Snell in the lead. We know that once Snell makes his pit stop. But it's which order they will be in.
Definitely so, especially because we did just see Ben Snell lose it, and obviously Oliva did take the launch and take P1 on the final couple of corners and that final sector at this track. And so technically, according to how it would normally go, is that Oliva should take P1 because he was ahead at the pit stops. But obviously anything can change. If he does get stuck in a bit of traffic here as he comes out, it might be a bit of a benefit towards Ben Snell. We'll have to watch when he comes into the pit lane. It is a 27-second gap from Ben Snell to the Oliva, and I don't think that is going to be enough to stay out in front. So we'll have to keep a good watch there. I believe it is going to be close. He might even come out alongside Oliva if Oliva has not gotten the best traffic in this outlap from the pit stop. So we'll have to just keep an eye out. We'll probably go on board shortly with Ben Snell to see where he sits in terms of a pit stop. But for the time being, on with Nick Green as he tries to hold on strong. Here he comes through the final right-hander. Is this going to be a pit stop? You can see how much he's struggling. I think those tires are so far worn, and into the pit lane he goes. Ben Snell will probably have a much slower lap compared to the previous laps. You can see the last was a 2:04. This last lap that you just did now is probably not going to be the best lap either. So I am guessing Oliva is going to come out in front. Unfortunately, Ben should have come in a little bit earlier before the tires started to drop off of a huge cliff like they have over here. But it's all going to be time that will tell where Oliva comes out. We'll be on board with him, though, to see if he gets the jump on Ben Snell.
Yeah, like I think it was actually a decent lap. So Snell was 4/10 faster in Sector 2. It's tricky to compare Sector 1 and Sector 2 because, of course, the pit stops. But where is Snell? Snell is ahead. He is ahead. He was actually stationary for 3 seconds shorter than Oliva, so maybe he was using less fuel, which would make sense because, of course, he was able to go that extra lap on fuel. So, yeah, very good work there from Snell. I mean, he's got the shortest pit stop of anyone, which is surprising, seeing that he's out in the lead, obviously. The driver behind Oliva is Jake Squire, so you didn't worry too much about him. It's Green, who's in 3rd position now. But of course, Snell, you were mentioning about his tyres. Of course, he wouldn't have changed them there. So if they are a little bit compromised, those wet tyres, then he is going to have to just stick with them to the end. But usually on iRacing, it's more of a temperature issue than a wear issue. So maybe that pit stop will help them cool down a little bit. Albeit I'm not quite sure how it works, honestly, in the wet condition. I don't know if they're just always cool and overheating isn't such an important thing. I assume it's still an issue. But well, yeah, we'll see what condition they are in, and if you can get back into the metronomic routine he was in just 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, he's got to just put on that pendulum face again and just do every single lap like a ticking pendulum. Absolutely no differentiation. But like you mentioned with the wet tires, it is indeed a big temperature issue that they face, especially when you're out pushing strong or after a recent spin. They really do pack a lot of PSI into them. Which or bar, depending on your unit of measurement, but in most GT3 standards, it is PSI. So I was assuming Ben Snell on that final lap before he came in, he was looking at about 32 to 33 PSI in those wets, and that's quite high for a wet tire. And so a little bit over the top, that could potentially have been why we saw him struggling so much. So like Sam says, when he stood still at the pit lane, he probably did get a couple of cool downs on those tires and just allowing them to drop that pressure a bit. So let's hope it does extend his lead. It does look like he is pulling away from a lever up to 4 seconds already now with 5 minutes left of racing. So can Ben Snell keep this race in control? Because if he spins like that again, Sam, like we saw in the previous rendition, it's not going to be good for him, because the lever will then be right by the finish line with just a couple of minutes left to go. So it is Ben Snell versus lever. Nick Green's also doing great to keep it up in 3rd position, but Ian Noxie is just behind to try and contest that final spot of the podium.
Yeah, I might be being very thick here, but I feel like Nick Green may not have had a podium this season. I could be very wrong on that.
No, I don't think he has.
So, yeah, it would be a really good result for him if he could consolidate on this result. Andrew Cash just falling away. Of course, Cash was fighting for P2 earlier on, and it's not quite worked out for him. I mean, Scott Evans, I remember, had an off at the final corner, so everyone's had some issues. Peter Ferrari, he's had a lot of issues, and we think we'll probably get a post-race penalty for his antics at T1 lap 1, and then of course another incident down at T10 as well, about 15 minutes into the race, albeit might yeah, I don't know, might escape punishment for that, because there was a similar incident applied to him, so they might, the stewards might just call it quits between that and say that all bounces out. But yeah, I think a post-race penalty after that one is very possible. Right now, the closest battle, Nick Green versus Ian Noxie, so just under a second. That's the only battle under a second on track right now.
That's probably going to be the battle that we're going to be watching for the next 3 or so minutes. We'll obviously keep in touch with Ben Snell and Dante Oliva up at the top. But like Sam says, this is where the main fighting action is, Nick Green and Noxie. And thankfully, it is quite an important fight, because it is the fight for the final podium spot. Nick Green holding on to 3rd position, but Ian Noxie in the big Mustang just a little bit further behind is going to try and contest it and break him down a little bit. But it's all going to be time that's going to tell what goes on. You can see the drivers coming down towards turn number 1. There's water still everywhere. That dry line is definitely formed quite solid now, so the drivers have a clear view of where they need to be, but they cannot touch any form of curb or any form of line or any form of paint, or else they might be seeing the rest of the pack from front view. And if you don't get that reference, I mean, they'll literally be backwards if they do not be too careful over here. But it is now Ian Noxie looking absolutely everywhere around the green Ferrari 296. And oh, a little bit of a side drift there from Nick Green. And thankfully, he's managed to catch it. But he has lost a lot of speed in terms of distance towards Ian Noxie. And he's going to have to try and pull away a bit here, because with 3 minutes left, Noxie is going to be quite aggressive with this time left to try and get around. And in front, there's Jake Squire letting the rest of the drivers through, currently being lapped, unfortunately, in the GT3 RS. But will keep on trying to push up towards the rest of the drivers and keep himself nice and contained there, down 11th position, the driver number 3. But back on board with Ian Noxie from the Valkyrie Racing team. He is ever so close now onto the backside of Nick Green and going defensive on the inside. He holds his line. Can the big Mustang find a way around the outside? It's good amounts of defensive blocking there from the likes of Nick Green, and not able to get around is Ian Noxie, and will have to sit posted just a bit further behind the green Ferrari 296. But with about a minute and a half remaining, this is going to be crunch time. He needs to push if he wants to get anywhere close to that top 3 podium.
Yeah, no, I feel like maybe Green and Oliva are like the only two who haven't. Oh, Noxie's off. Noxie's off at the final corner. That's going to drop him at least one place. It might even get Scott Evans involved as well. Let's run on board with Evans, see how close he can get. Looks like Noxie's been able to recover, so he will survive that one. But I was just going to say that Green and Oliva seem to be the two drivers who haven't made a mistake in this race. And then Noxie makes his second mistake. And let's see how it happened then. So did he get a tyre on the curb? I mean, it's pretty close, isn't it? He may have had a tyre on the curb. He was certainly flirting with it.
Yeah, definitely so. He was getting very close to it, but it could have also just been the puddle right next to the curb. You can see it's been built up quite heavily there on that final corner. And so even just the slightest amount of contact, and depending on if he's coasting or braking around that corner, I'm not too sure what the drivers are doing in this rain, but braking in that pool of water, the aquaplane is going to be there. But for the time being, he drops down to 5th. The battle for 3rd is now between Nick Green and Andrew Cash. But all eyes are up top, though, because we have officially reached our 35-minute mark. Ben Snell will be given the white flag to finish this race off. And even after spinning off twice in a single lap, manages to recover it solidly from Oliva. And I think it was a great strategy to not pit for tires, because he's really been able to manage that car. And despite of that, I mean, he came out of the pit lane about 2.8 seconds away from Oliva, now 7.7 seconds away. So an incredible amount of time gained there from Ben Snell, showing the amount of skill and precision and just the knowledge that he's got in that big Mercedes-Benz. But it has all paid off for tonight's racing. He comes around the final corner to get that checkered flag, and it's a great finish yet again from our championship leader. Ben Snell will take the double win here, the win in the feature and the win in the sprint for the round number 6 here. Dante Oliva will take 2nd position, and Nick Green, like we were talking about, Sam, will get his first podium of this season in 3rd. Andrew Cash will take 4th, with Ian Noxie having that spin, unfortunately losing out down to 5th position. Sean Evans will come across in 6th. Peter Ferraro, after having quite an eventful race where he was fighting in 2nd, now down in 7th position, unfortunately. So 2 positions lost down all the way from the start. And Jelly will also finish in 8th, with Ben Mitchell, our race league owner, down in 9th position. They're still quite a bit further down the track. You can see it on your live timing board. It's a good 48 or so seconds in all. Ben Mitchell looks to have been off again, it seems like, as quite slow through that corner that he goes, and now just trying to nurse the car home. But for the rest of the drivers, it's been an absolutely incredible race, and everybody seems to have managed the rain quite well. Yeah,
a little bit of a shame that Ben's race fell away, because he was looking so good in the early stage. Really seemed like he'd cracked it at the start of race 2 when it came to these conditions. But he fell away a little bit himself as well, didn't he? So we'll end up in P9. And Vantagiato, what a disastrous race for him. I mean, to be fair, it just went wrong on lap 1, didn't it, actually? To be fair, I think after that boy had as good a pace as anyone else. He'll be thinking that, if it weren't for me being wiped out with the mistakes that Snell made, maybe I could have contended for the win there. But it wasn't meant to be. He did at least beat Jake Squire and Luke Broadbent, so he gets a couple of points back. But of course, with Oliva, who was already in that fight for 2nd place in the championship, was already in 2nd place in the championship, he will extend that advantage despite Vantagiato's very good race 1. So that'll be frustrating for Ivan, because that was probably his best race of the season in terms of pace. Let's have a look at the results then for race 2 of the evening, and that is how it stands. Snell beating Oliva, who was really struggling actually towards the end. Green had a couple more laps than he maybe could have put some pressure on. Andrew Cash, he fell away a little bit towards the end as well. Ian Noxie, he spun near the end. Scott Evans had one spin at the final corner. If it weren't for that, he could have well been fighting for the podium. There's Peter Ferraro, who was in the wars, Michael Angeli, Ben Mitchell, Ivan Vantagiato, who was so unlucky on T1, Jake Squire, and Luke Broadbent are drivers. But I think that's pretty much it for us, Tristan. But of course, we have a week's break next week, but then we're back after that, aren't we?
Definitely so. We are back next week. Sam, I'm not too sure if you know what the track is. Apologies, it slipped my mind here.
It has.
What we'll be seeing at round number 7.
It slipped my mind as well, if I'm totally honest.
I'll give Sam a second just to maybe try and find it. But I mean, just the general overview from the race, it was incredible to watch the drivers going around here. A rainy Barcelona circuit. And I mean, you can see it was raining non-stop from start of qualifying all the way to the end of the main race. We unfortunately don't have any interviews yet for tonight, but so that will be it. And apologies to repeat that.
Mosport, Canadian Tire Motorsport Park is the next round, so one that we don't visit all the time. I believe that will be a dry race. So yeah, we'll see how that one. Very tricky to overtake circuit, so that'll be a different challenge.
Very, very interesting. Well, please make sure you do not well, this is a live stream, so thankfully it's not like you're booking a stadium or coming to a physical event, but we will not see you next week. We'll see you in 2 weeks at the Canadian Tire Motorsport track for round number 7 of the BISC GT3 Championship. Again, thank you to the major sponsors of Benji's YouTube channel and Bowden's own premium car care products. My name has been Tristan Herbst, joined by Sam Fitzpatrick in the commentary box and the production booth. We'll see you in 2 weeks' time for round number 7. Have a great night, evening, day, or afternoon, wherever you are, and we'll see you next time. Cheers, cheers.